The first installment of TMNT for the NES got criticized heavily by the nerd, who called the game one of the most annoying games he has ever played. We all remember the infamous underwater stage and the nerd's numerous rants. Is this game really that bad though? Does it have any redeemable qualities to it? Let's analyze and find out. This is Debunking the Nerd.
The original Ninja Turtles is one of the most annoying games I've ever played. You first play it and think, well, this can't be too bad, the control's decent, it's fun killing things, sound effects are cool. You may even think I'm trying to compare it to the sequels, which are far superior, but this first one is garbage. It sucks from a straw.
The way we'll analyze TMNT is we will go through the nerd's complaints first. We'll take a look at how the over-exaggerated complaints of the nerd character, done simply for comedic value, helped in shaping the negative opinion of this game. After that, we'll give you our thoughts on TMNT for the NES. Without further ado, here are the nerd's complaints. We'll start with a trivial complaint.
That beeping sound when you're low on energy, I mean, that's so annoying.
We disagree with the nerd on this one, as the beeping is not that bad. You control 4 turtles in this game, and you can switch to another turtle anytime you want. The beeping starts when a turtle is low on health, reminding the player that it is probably a good time to switch. There are only 4 beeps, and the sound design of the beeps is not that annoying. But for players who can't handle 4 beeps, it is possible to cancel the beeps by going in and out of the turtle select screen. If you really want to make a case for annoying beeping, the Pokemon series definitely takes the cake. Let's take a look at the next complaint.
Now look at that. Now, how the hell am I supposed to get up there? That's impossible. The only way I can get up there is with Donatello, the turtle with the longest weapon. Come on, get over here, you nut. Okay, all of that just for a pizza? Pizza
The pizza complaint takes place in the first stage, which acts as a tutorial stage. This is the second building in the game, and the very first building that you can enter. You can see right away as you enter the building that this is all indeed for a pizza. By showing the pizza right away, the game teaches the player right from the start that exploration can be rewarding. By the way, you can get up the ladder without any problems with each turtle, so the nerd's statement that the only way to get up there with Donatello is false. The first boss fight in the game has also caught the nerd's attention.
Okay, here's a trick I think everybody knows. When you're fighting Rocksteady, you jump up onto these crates with Donatello and you just keep hitting him with your bow. Now what's really weird is the timing. I mean, you have to hit him when he's sort of ducking, not when he's standing up. I guess that would make too much sense. So it's obviously a game flaw.
It is uncertain why the nerd took such a complex approach to the Rocksteady fight. Instead of taking the nerd's approach, you can easily steamroll Rocksteady with either Donatello or Leonardo by facing him on the ground. The boss pattern is simple and predictable, and on top of that, you can destroy Rocksteady's projectiles. Easy fight, with no need to exploit the game's mechanics. We don't agree with the nerd's complaints so far. Perhaps the bomb defusal complaint has some merit to it. Let's see what the nerd had to say about it.
Then there's that level where you have to save the dam. April O'Neil says, "You have my support." What the hell did she ever do for you? Stupid banana raincoat wearing bitch. So you have to swim around and deactivate all these bombs. There's so many things out there to kill you, and you have a time limit, so naturally you're rushing to make it through as fast as you can. And all these electric plants hurt you, so you need a lot of patience. But how could you have patience when you're in a hurry?
The underwater bomb defusal section is located in the second half of stage 2. The way it was presented makes it seem as though the difficulty of this section is on par with other infamous sections, such as the Turbo Tunnel in Battletoads or the entire 6-2 stage in Ninja Gaiden. What if we told you that the nerd has vastly over-exaggerated the difficulty of the underwater section? Let's take a look at the map. You start here, and your objective is to defuse all 8 bombs in under 2 minutes and 20 seconds. The layout is pretty straightforward, so it is impossible to get lost here. There are a couple of insta-death traps that can suck you in if you're swimming too close to them, but if you manage your distance, you can safely get through them without much difficulty. This part right here is the only real challenge. It's impossible to get through here without taking any damage and may prove to be difficult on your very first playthrough. Luckily, as mentioned before, the player has 4 turtles at their disposal, each with 8 health points, and can switch at any time, making this part a breeze to go through. Will you clear the bomb defusal section on your very first playthrough? Probably not, but you'll get it on your second or third try without any problems. Up next is the sewer jumps complaint.
You know what I hate? The jumps in the sewer. If your accuracy is slightly off, you're going down. So you really gotta take your time and watch what's coming up. Oh, you son of a This one in particular I've always obsessed over. This jump. It's all because of this stupid platform. They don't give you any room to make the jump. You can try creeping up on the edge and giving a light tap, or you can forcefully jump as hard as you can. You'll never make it, not without a lot of luck.
There are 2 types of a jump in this game. A quick tap of the A button produces a short jump, while holding the button gives you a long jump. By the time you reach the sewer part in stage 3, you had plenty of time to figure out when to use each jump. The long jump takes some time to get used to, but most of the platforming in the sewers can be done with the short jump or just by walking off the platforms. Use the long jump only when you really have to and you'll be fine. Here's a quick demonstration of the infamous sewer jump. The one the nerd said can't be made without a lot of luck. There's no luck involved in this jump, as you just need to do a short jump to get to the other side. But the way the nerd showed it, bashing the head into the platform on purpose is very misleading. Of course you won't make that jump, if that's the way you're gonna do this. We completely disagree with the nerd on this one. Next up is the Unreachable Pizza's complaint.
And look at this right here. These spike walls come at you like an Indiana Jones booby trap, and some game designer who's laughing their ass off just decided to put a pizza down there. Okay, well, what's the point? I mean, are you gonna be suicidal enough to go and try to get that pizza? I mean, who's gonna do that? It's impossible. What a joke. And speaking of hard to reach pizzas, look at this. Oh, you rat. This is just a bunch of dookie. This is bull. Oh my god. Oh man.
The first pizza was placed here to teach the players that wasting time in this section is not an option. The walls close in on the player fast, and you have just enough time to get to the bottom. So yeah, it really is impossible to get that pizza. The second pizza is a different case. To get it, you have to stand close to the platform and make a short jump to the right. It really is that simple, and you don't have to perform all those crazy jumps as shown by the nerd. There are a lot of easy to reach pizzas scattered throughout this stage, so why would you bother to get this one anyway? The last complaint we'll cover is the infamous gap complaint, aka you can just walk over it.
Hey, why does this jump have to be so close to the ceiling? F this game. I can't get over this jump. If only those 2 extra platforms weren't there, it wouldn't be a problem. What a joke. Well, you can just walk over it? You can just walk over it. Cowabunga. Cow piece of dog.
Let's take a look at the infamous gap. The turtle sprite is clearly touching the ceiling, hinting that jumping here is not a good idea. This gap teaches the player that some platforms must be walked over instead of jumping. In fact, later in the same stage, the player has a chance to use this newly learned mechanic. The nerd keeps on trying to jump over the gap a whopping total of 8 times. You would think that after the second or the third jump it would be better to try a different approach. There are other games where you can pass over the gap without jumping, but in those cases it is not so obvious at first. Here's a quick bonus. A continuity error appears in this episode. The nerd shows walking over gaps at 3 minutes 40 seconds of the video without breaking a sweat. But later in the video, at the 5 minutes and 6 seconds mark, the gap run begins. This just shows how the complaints are hyperbolized for comedic purposes. All in all, the AVGN TMNT episode is still fun to watch even today. The nerd ripped TMNT a new one. The end run is legendary, and the episode spawned some of the best one-liners in the series. Is this game, as the nerd put it, garbage and sucks from a straw? In our opinion, no. TMNT for the NES falls into Nintendo Hard category. As with any Nintendo Hard game, in order to beat the game, the player needs to master the mechanics of the game, and some trial and error and patience is involved. So, what's our take on the first installment of TMNT for the NES? The game has excellent soundtrack, and the turtle switch mechanic gives an extra dimension to the game. Each turtle has its own strength and weakness and is more effective than other turtles when dealing with different enemies. It is the player's task to figure out when to use each turtle. This wasn't mentioned by the nerd, so we think it would be fair to point it out. There are a couple of other mechanics that the nerd hasn't mentioned. Let's start with the respawning pizzas. Basically, when you leave and re-enter a building, the pizzas respawn. This means you have an unlimited supply of health, making the game way easier. The enemies respawn as well, but after the first time you go through a building, you will have more or less memorized the enemy positions. So, there should be no surprises when you re-enter a building. Let's talk about the sub-weapons, as they also weren't mentioned by the nerd. The game offers the player various sub-weapons that can be either dropped by the enemies or found in different parts of a stage. These sub-weapons level the playing field, especially for turtles with shorter weapon reach. The boomerang and the scroll sub-weapons are the best sub-weapons in the game, with the boomerang being one of, if not the best boomerangs in the entire NES library. If you manage to catch the boomerang on its way back to the turtle, you will get to use that boomerang again until you don't catch it. This is a nice touch from the developers of the game. The scroll sub-weapon is one of the most OP sub-weapons ever in all of the NES game history. It deals massive damage, one-shotting most of the enemies along its path. Just take a look. You can cheese the game thanks to this sub-weapon alone. And what's more, just like the respawning pizzas, the sub-weapons also respawn when you re-enter a building. There are multiple spots in the entire game where you can infinitely farm these scrolls. So, if you want to beat TMNT, but don't want to learn all the stages and enemy position and patterns, get the knife. Get the scrolls. The nerd also does not mention that you can rescue your defeated turtles. When a turtle's HP gets to 0, instead of dying, it gets captured. Starting from the third stage, every stage has a location that holds a captured turtle hostage. Rescue the captured turtles, and now your squad is in full power again. All these mechanics that weren't mentioned by the nerd give the player a fair fighting chance. After all, there aren't too many games on the NES that give the player unlimited health refills and unlimited sub-weapons. The boss battles in this game are easy, especially if you are playing with the correct turtle or if you are using sub-weapons. You get to fight Bebop, Rocksteady, Mecha Turtle, Big Mouser, Technodrome, and Shredder. Neither of these bosses provide a significant challenge though. There are a total of 6 stages in the game. Most of these are split into top-down overworld and side-scrolling sections. Stages 3 through 5 rely heavily on exploration, with stage 4 being the stage where the first difficulty spike occurs. Here's what the scopes of stage 1 and stage 4 look like. These white dots are all the areas you can visit. The player needs to navigate this maze-like stage to get to the end of the stage. The difficulty of platforming sections increases in this stage. In the 5th stage, the player needs to find the Technodrome, randomly located in one of these 3 areas. The second difficulty spike occurs in this stage, as you encounter new enemies, which are more aggressive and more difficult to deal with compared to the enemies before. But if you have stocked up on the scrolls, this stage shouldn't be that difficult. After locating and busting your way inside of the Technodrome, you are faced against the last stage. The real challenge of this stage is this hall, located before the final boss fight. The constant onslaught of enemies makes this part one of the toughest sections in the NES library. So it is best to be stacked with the scroll sub-weapon here. Leave some of the scrolls for Shredder, the apple deserves it. The last mechanic of the game that we want to mention is the power bonus mechanic. When turtles lose half of their health, they get increased attack power. This mechanic applies to each turtle except for Raphael. For some reason, he got left out. Anyway, this mechanic gives the players even more chances to succeed. As with some Konami games, TMNT is bogged down with slowdowns when there are too many sprites on screen. This doesn't take away from the experience though, and many other great games have the same slowdown problems. This concludes our analysis of TMNT for the NES. It definitely is a difficult game, but that doesn't make it a bad game. We don't agree with the nerd that this game sucks ass from a straw, as the complaints were way off on this one. Give this game a try if you like challenging games. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.